All right, joining us today to talk Pittsburgh Steelers football is Jarrett Bailey, writer, NFL, that is. He writes about the NFL at USA Today. Also, you can catch him on Behind the Steel Curtain and his podcast, the Pump Fake Podcast, which I recommend highly. Follow him up on x.com at jbaileyNFL. All right, Jarrett, you got to explain to me what kind of voodoo magic is Mike Tomlin up to in Pittsburgh? Because we see the Steelers at 6-3. Of course, we had the news on Wednesday, Deshaun Watson out for the season. As of right now, the AFC North, three of those teams, if it ended today, are in the playoffs. The Steelers are one of them at 6-3. They're a half game behind the leader, Baltimore. The team offense rankings low in almost every category. Same with the defense, except for points per game. What's going on in Pittsburgh? How are these Steelers winning football games?
I think a lot of it comes from, you talk about Mike Tomlin, but defensively, the numbers don't look great. You pointed that out, but they've been a very bend, don't break unit this year where, teams, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're on the field more often than most defenses are because the offense can't do anything. So the more possessions that teams have, the more time of possession that opponents have, you're going to, be able to garner more yardage against the defense. But they also have, I think, 6 takeaways in the red zone. That leads the NFL. They just had 2 this past weekend against Green Bay. And they lead the NFL in takeaways as a whole right now. So even though they might be surrendering a little bit more yardage and more chunk plays than we're used to from a Steelers defense, the fact that they're able to take the ball away has helped them a lot. The only problem is that the offense isn't doing anything with it. And I'll have to go back and look at the updated version of this, but over the past 2 years, if the Steelers score 20 or more, or if the opponent scores 20 or more points, the Steelers are 1-7. But if they hold them to less than 20 points, they're 13-4. I think that goes up to 14-4 now because Green Bay didn't get 20 points. So the defense is very much doing their part. The offense isn't. Now, it's kicked up a little bit in the past couple weeks because the run game's been terrific. They just ran for over 200 yards against the Packers, and they have 370 yards rushing over the past 2 weeks. And Broderick Jones, starting right tackle, has a lot to do with that in terms of him finally being incorporated into the lineup, and the run game has definitely benefited because of it. But they can't pass the ball, and a lot of that is a combination of schematically, Matt Canada's scheme isn't good, but also the quarterback isn't good. And Steelers fans don't like hearing that, but Kenny Pickett just doesn't look like the guy. So they've benefited as well from playing, they played Will Levis and the Titans. They played a Raiders team that was still under the tutelage of Josh McDaniels. They played a Packers team with Jordan Love that hasn't looked good this year. And the other teams, the really good teams outside of their division that they faced have beat them up. They lost week 1 to the 49ers 30-7. They lost to the Texans by 4 scores. So They match up well with teams like the Ravens. I think they've won 6 of the last 7 games against Baltimore. And then Cleveland, they've always matched up well against as well. And now going into this weekend, they're going to be facing P.J. Walker, it looks like, instead of Deshaun Watson. So, a lot of it has been, luck of the draw per se. But the defense, while their raw numbers don't look great, they're still a top 10 team in terms of EPA. And they've really done their part.
Yeah, and you would expect that. The stalwart Pittsburgh defense always seems to, even in years where it's not its best, always seems to be that lunch pail crew and getting the job done. You talked about rushing the ball better the last couple of weeks, and we've seen that. Talk to me about the reasons behind that. Is that just an evolution with that offensive line and the running backs themselves, or what's triggering that? Is that a Canada switch in strategy around play calling, or what's happened?
Well, my friend JP Acosta from SB Nation, who everybody should read his stuff, he points this out to me a lot, and he's always said that Najee Harris is best utilized as a gap scheme runner. And the way that the Steelers have really been running the ball recently is they're using a lot of pulling offensive lineman situations where they have Broderick Jones either pull to the left side or they have Isaac Seumalo pull to the right side, and they run the ball off of Broderick Jones, who is very good at getting downfield to the second level. And that's the kind of, the types of run plays that Najee Harris is very good at. Jaylen Warren is the more pop guy, the more explosive guy. So as long as you get him the ball and there's a little bit of a sliver of a hole, he's going to try to run through it. And he's a smaller guy, so he has that advantage where Najee Harris is going to be the guy that grinds out some yards. Jalen Warren's going to be the shifty guy, and it's really benefited them. They had as even amount of touches as you can have last week. Jalen Warren had his first career 100-yard game. Najee Harris, I believe, had 89 yards on the ground against Green Bay. So finding that balance has also been really good, and a consistent change of pace to keep defenses on their toes and not necessarily know what you're going to throw at them has helped. But I touched on Broderick Jones. Weeks 1 through 7, the Steelers were 30th in the league in yards before first contact. The last 2 weeks, they're second in the league in that. So it's amazing what a first round pick offensive lineman can do, and they're definitely reaping the benefits of that. And it's making everybody else better. Mason Cole, the center, who has largely been not good this year, he had a nice game against Green Bay. Dan Moore, the left tackle, played really well alongside Isaac Smalo. James Daniels, the right guard, had a nice game. So I think he's helping lift the entire unit as a whole, and the offense and the run game has benefited from it the last couple weeks.
Well, on the offense, and you mentioned it earlier in passing, of course, you've been pointing out the negatives and the shortcomings of Kenny Pickett, and I watch you on the web, and yeah, fans don't necessarily want to hear that from their guy that they might have invested in, and who knows, probably bought a jersey. But 76 quarterback rating is 6th worst in the NFL. But then Kenny Pickett in the 4th quarter goes to 6th best. It seems like even though he's struggled and you've seen him miss these throws, these open routes, I think you had pointed out after Sunday's game, this incredible route that was wide open, and Kenny Pickett just missed it. He threw the ball short. When you look at what's going on with him, why is it that he gets better late in the game? Is it simply the urgency, the catch-up? What's going on with Kenny Pickett? What are you seeing? Why is he not the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers at quarterback?
Well, first of all, I don't know why it takes to the 4th quarter for him to start making competent throws. But it's just the easy things that he's not doing. Like, there was a play where Deontay Johnson beat a defensive back one-on-one, was wide open down the sideline. If Kenny Pickett makes a good throw, it's a touchdown. Instead, he throws it to the flat where it's nearly picked off by Devondre Campbell. And if Devondre Campbell catches it, it's a pick 6. And it's George Pickens ran a shallow cross against the Titans last Thursday night. If he catches it, there's one guy that might have a shot at him. If he's probably running at 75 yards for a touchdown. But instead, it's a 5-yard throw downfield. Pickett overthrows him. And it's things like that where, he doesn't have a huge arm. They don't test the middle of the field whatsoever. Like, you can look at all of his passing charts this season. They look virtually identical, and they're all throws to the sidelines, either sideline. And if they do go over the middle, it is not even hyperbole 2 yards past the line of scrimmage. Like, they are not. And look, we can talk about Matt Canada's scheme all we want, and it's not a good scheme. I think a lot of it, too, is the Steelers don't trust him because he doesn't have a huge arm, and he hasn't shown that he can make these big-time throws down the middle of the field. So and Ben Roethlisberger's final year, the built-in excuse was, okay, he's almost 40. He had surgery on his elbow. His arm's kind of shot at this point. We're not going to, we just don't think that Ben can really do that anymore. I think the same can be said for Kenny Pickett, where they just don't think he can do it. And Tomlin is going to play face for the media and everything. He's going to try to defend his guy, and I get that. But I think internally they probably know, okay, we're not going to be able to go on the road. If the season ended today, they would go on the road to face the Dolphins in the playoffs. They know they can't go on the road and expect to win with a quarterback that goes 14-23 for $126. You're not going to win. You're not going to win going into Miami doing that. You're not going to win going into Kansas City doing that. You're not going to win going into Cincinnati doing that. And you're probably not going to beat the Jaguars doing that. I've said for the past couple weeks, especially now, because it looks like they're going to be 7-3, barring anything crazy with Cleveland. They're probably going to be a playoff team. And the only chance that I like of them winning in the playoffs is if they draw Baltimore, because they play them so well. But this isn't a team and a style of offense that you can win deep in the playoffs with. You can't win with a guy who can't. He has one game in his career where he has thrown for two or more touchdown passes. And he's thrown 13 touchdown passes in his career in now 22 games. Like, C.J. Stroud already has more than that in 9 games. Like, that's... People got irritated that me and other guys in the media pointed it out. What do you want us to say, man? It's not
facts.
Good.
It's facts. Hey, remember, I covered Derek Carr for 6 years, so I know some of the battle with people not cherry picking stats and all of that stuff.
Right.
When you look at that quarterback situation, though, like you said, barring any kind of craziness between now and the end of the season, and the schedule that the Steelers have and some of the matchups they have, you can expect them, I think, to be a playoff team. And if they are, clearly they'll move down in the draft order. Now, it's a deep draft in young quarterbacks, even going in to the second round. Is this a situation where, because of where this team is at this point, that they want to go get another young guy? If the organization really is where you think it might be, which is, hey, this isn't the guy, do they do that? Do they do the young route plus try to go get a veteran next year? What's the future there for them?
I think if they do want to get a quarterback, it should be a veteran, because you look at TJ Watt. He's still playing great. He's yet to win a playoff game in his career. Cam Hayward, he's not getting any younger. If you want to be a legit contender, you can't commit to, okay, we'll take, another year to build up a guy and hope by year 2 that he's ready to take a next step, because you just did that, and it's clear that the guy that you have now isn't taking a step forward. So if they do decide, all right, Kenny Pickett's not it, let's go and get a new quarterback, I think it should be, okay, let's go try to pursue a Kirk Cousins in free agency. Let's maybe make a move for Kyler Murray if the Cardinals decide that they want to get a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, depending on where they finish in terms of draft position. There's going to be guys that are available that are, Kirk Cousins was having the best year of his career before he went down with the Achilles. Kyler Murray, he came back last week for Arizona and still looks like a really good quarterback. But the new regime in Arizona didn't draft him, and if they decide that they want to move on and get their own guy, then that's a move that the Steelers should consider. So there's a few guys that would absolutely take Pittsburgh from being, okay, they can get to the playoffs, to, okay, this team can make a run at an AFC championship. So I think that that's the best move of action, rather than, all right, let's get another new guy, draft somebody, hope he turns out good. With this roster and this defensive personnel, when you have guys like that and this skill position talent that they have, I don't think that they can really beat around the bush anymore.
Yeah, that window, right? We always talk about that window of opportunity. And like you said, with the defense and with Watt and Hayward there, you kind of got to take your shot now. I 100% agree. Before we let you go, Jarrett, the AFC North, I talked about it at the beginning. Of course, the news in Cleveland, bad for Cleveland. They probably wish they had Josh Dobbs back now at quarterback, but a great defense over there. But this division with Cleveland now with an uncertain quarterback position there. Obviously, we talked about the Steelers and we know about the Ravens. And then you got the Bengals at the bottom. Do you still think 3 teams from this division make the playoffs? Do the Bengals maybe move up because of the Browns' misfortune if they can find consistency? Or how do you feel about the AFC North and if this 3 teams will stick?
I think at least 2 will get in. 3 would be pushing it. I don't think Cleveland's going to get in now. I think it was going to be tough for them to get in even with Watson. But Baltimore's got a tough second half stretch because they got to play they play Cincinnati this Thursday. Then they still have games against. They play Jacksonville. They play Miami. So, they've got a tough little stretch. Maybe it's naivety, but I'm not counting out Buffalo. I just believe in that quarterback too much. And if they can get like if they can go 2-2 in this next 4-game gauntlet that they have to run, they finish off with the Chargers, the Patriots, and then Miami as basically probably a play-in game. If they win, then they're in the playoffs. So I'm not counting them out yet to go 10-7 and get a wild card spot. And then you look at other teams, like the Raiders are going to, try to play spoiler. I think the Colts are going to be, I don't think that they're going to be a playoff team, but they've shown that they can beat teams and put up points. Denver still, I think 14 teams are like 4-5 or better right now in the AFC. So nobody's really out of it except for Tennessee and New England. But I think that Houston's going to be a playoff team. You look at their schedule, they're playing really well. I think they'll be, a 10-win team or so. So it's very deep in the AFC. I think that if I had to guess, at least 2 will make it from the AFC North, and I think it'll probably be Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Baltimore, we've seen them collapse at the end of the last few seasons, and they've got a few tough games remaining on the schedule. So it's going to be tight. If I had to bet, I think 3 teams can make it. Then it's going to come down to, okay, is Houston going to be the wild card team? Is it going to be Buffalo? But I'm not counting out the Ravens, having a little bit of a collapse with these teams that they still have on the horizon.
Yeah, traditionally we see this time of the year, the week before and the week of Thanksgiving sort of starts to separate the teams, and you see teams that are trending up and trending down. You talked about some of the kind of sleeper spoiler teams, including Denver. If you look at who they play down the stretch, they can ruin some playoff hopes for teams like the Chargers and the Dolphins and others. So it'll be interesting to see how it all folds out. Jarrett, thanks so much for being with us here on Sportsnaut, and make sure you follow Jarrett on X.com @JBaileyNFL. Take care, my man.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it.